Determined to change my fate, the moment I opened my eyes, I found myself at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Beside me was Ethan, my soon-to-be ex-husband. He frowned, urging impatiently, "Sign it quickly, I have other things to do." I snapped back to reality, looking at the face before me, both strange and familiar then, at the divorce agreement in my hand. My heart clenched when my gaze stopped at the child custody section. In my past life, I fought for my son Liam, but this time I want my daughter Hannah. So I told Ethan, "I've changed my mind. I want our daughter. You can raise our son." Ethan looked at me suspiciously. "Willow, what game are you playing now? Before, you were dead set on raising our son. Why the sudden change?" Too lazy to explain, I simply said, "I've been reborn." The moment I opened my eyes, I found myself at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Beside me was Ethan, my soon-to-be ex-husband. He frowned, urging impatiently, "Sign it quickly, I have other things to do." I snapped back to reality, looking at the face before me, both strange and familiar then, at the divorce agreement in my hand. My heart clenched when my gaze stopped at the child custody section. In my past life, I fought for my son Liam, but this time, I want my daughter Hannah. So I told Ethan, "I've changed my mind. I want our daughter. You can raise our son." Ethan looked at me suspiciously. "Willow, what game are you playing now? Before, you were dead set on raising our son. Why the sudden change?" Too lazy to explain, I simply said, "If you agree, I'll sign immediately." Ethan couldn't have been happier. He immediately revised the agreement and we both signed. The moment the divorce certificate was in my hand, I turned and walked away. In my past life, I was deeply patriarchal. During the divorce, I insisted on fighting for Liam. I endured immense hardship, tirelessly selling street food to raise him, making sure he went to university, then graduate school, earned his PhD, and eventually got married. But what was the result? The son I raised with such difficulty didn't even reserve a seat for me on his wedding day. Standing amidst the crowd, I watched Liam and his bride bow to the woman who had destroyed my family years ago, calling her mother. My heart went numb. I turned and ran to the hotel rooftop, then jumped. So, when I was given another chance to live, what reason did I have to slave away, sewing gowns for someone else's joy? Arriving home, my daughter Hannah was anxiously sitting on the sofa. Seeing me enter, she immediately ran over, picked up my slippers, and neatly placed them at my feet. I looked at my daughter, only 8 years old, watching her obediently place the slippers so perfectly in front of me. All sorts of emotions welled up in my heart: regret, sorrow, heartbreak, mixed with a sliver of joy. My tears fell like rain. Seeing me cry, Hannah immediately hugged me tightly, her small hand gently patting my back, her soft voice comforting me. "Mommy, don't cry. Hannah will always be with you." I hugged her close, repeatedly whispering, "I'm sorry, Hannah. Mommy is so sorry, my child." In my past life, when we divorced, I chose my son, Liam, and Hannah was handed over to Ethan. Ethan, too engrossed with his new lover, had no time to care for his daughter, so he sent her to his parents in the countryside to be raised by them. My eyes were only on my son, completely indifferent to my daughter's well-being. The next time I saw her was when she was 12 years old. Her face was pale, her small, frail figure standing before me, her tiny hands clutching mine as she pleaded, "Mommy, I can do anything you ask. Can I please stay with you?" At that time, my life was incredibly difficult. Every day, I struggled, selling food on the street to make a living, and Liam's expenses were growing. The money I earned wasn't enough to cover everything. How could I possibly afford to raise another child? Besides, Ethan was enjoying himself outside. Why should I have to raise his daughter for him? I brushed her hand away, coldly refusing. "Go find your father. He doesn't care about you. Your grandparents made you quit school to work, but you still want to study? That has nothing to do with me. Figure it out yourself." After my cruel rejection, Hannah quietly turned and left. Before she left, she looked at me, her eyes blank and filled with despair. If no one loves me, why was I even born? The next time I saw Hannah was after I had jumped from the 12th floor. My body was completely disfigured, shattered beyond recognition. Everyone around recoiled in horror. Even my own son, Liam, angrily yelled, "That crazy old woman! I told them before she should have been admitted to a mental hospital, but no one listened. Now look, my perfect wedding is completely ruined. What terrible luck." My soul hovered right behind him, hearing every word. My eyes were bloodshot with such hatred, I wanted to turn into a vengeful spirit and choke him on the spot. Just then, a frail figure appeared. She knelt beside my shattered body, gently removed her own coat, and carefully draped it over my cold form. Then she looked up at the police officer beside her, her voice calm yet filled with sorrow. "This is my mother. Please allow me to take her home and bury her." Hannah arranged my funeral. She had no money, so she borrowed everywhere to buy a coffin and take care of my final rites. It was only then that I learned she had been sick for a long time. Her illness had reached its final stage, and she didn't have much time left. After hugging my daughter and crying for a while, I gradually calmed down. Looking at the frail girl before me, I thought of how, in the past, I had given every delicious meal or good thing to Liam. My heart was torn with even more regret. I took her tiny hand and gently said, "Come on, Mom will take you out for a nice meal." I thought Hannah would be overjoyed, but no, the child shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. "No, Mommy, I don't need a nice meal. Please don't abandon me." I froze, my heart squeezed tight. Choking back tears, I hugged her close and whispered, "Mommy won't abandon you. Mommy only wants her Hannah. Don't be afraid, my girl." Children who aren't loved always carry a sense of insecurity. They're more sensitive, more understanding, but also more pitiable. Before this, I had never once taken Hannah out to eat alone. Every time we ate out, it was because Liam wanted to, and I just brought her along as an afterthought. There were even times when Liam demanded to eat at expensive restaurants, and I would only take him, leaving Hannah at home. Liam, on the other hand, loved to show off. Every time he came back after eating, he'd recount it all to Hannah, looking smug. And Hannah, she would just smile faintly and quietly say, "It's okay, Mom. I don't really like those dishes anyway." At that time, I never cared about her feelings. I always believed that girls weren't worthy of expensive things. My patriarchal mindset was so deeply ingrained that I even forgot I was a woman myself. I took Hannah to Pizza Hut, a place she had never eaten at before. It was her first time having steak and pasta, and she was overjoyed. Leaving the restaurant, we passed a children's clothing store, and I took her in to pick out some new clothes. Seeing my daughter's radiant, happy smile filled my heart with joy. Just as we finished eating and arrived home, Liam walked in, followed by a group of rowdy friends. The moment he entered, he yelled at me, "My friends are here, Mom. Quickly make some delicious dishes. Call us when it's ready." Saying this, he turned to his friends and told them to go. "Let's go to my room and play games." The whole group crowded into his room. The door closed, then opened again. Liam walked out, looking annoyed that I was still sitting quietly on the sofa. "What are you still doing sitting there, Mom?" Before I could speak, he snapped, "Never mind cooking, just order takeout. McDonald's is fine, and remember to get drinks too." Saying this, he went back to his room. I remained sitting, not even bothering to pick up my phone. Half an hour later, Liam came out again. He looked around, didn't see any food, and asked me, "Mom, have you ordered food yet?" I was watching TV and didn't even bother to look up. "No, I haven't." As soon as he heard that, he flared up. "Are you deaf or blind? Can't you see my friends are here?" I shot up, rushed towards him, raised my hand, and slapped him across the face. Liam was stunned. He stared at me, completely bewildered. From childhood to adulthood, I had never dared to lay a finger on him, yet now I had slapped him. For a long time, he couldn't regain his composure. His friends, hearing the commotion, also ran out of the room. Seeing the conflict between mother and son, these shrewd kids didn't dare utter a word and quietly retreated. Perhaps because he had lost face in front of his friends, after they all left, Liam immediately yelled at me, "You hit me! You dared to hit me!" He clenched his fists and lunged at me. Hannah quickly grabbed his arm. "Brother, Mom is our mother." Liam roughly shoved her hand away, his eyes wide with fury as he yelled at me, "Who the hell are you to hit me?" I looked at the undisciplined, disrespectful son before me, always screaming at his own mother. In my past life, he was like this too, but I still poured my heart into loving him, thinking that he would understand once he grew up. But now he was 15 years old. How could a 15-year-old be said to not understand? He was inherently rotten, just like his father, Ethan. Too tired to argue, I picked up my phone and dialed Ethan's number, putting it on speaker so both children could hear. "When are you coming to pick up Liam?" Ethan's voice came from the other end. "I'll drive over to get him right away." I hung up, then looked at Liam and said in a cold voice, "Today, your father and I officially divorced. You'll go with him. I'm keeping Hannah. Hurry and pack your things, your father will be here soon." Liam's sullen expression vanished instantly, replaced by excitement. "Fantastic, Dad has money. If I go with Dad, I can eat well and dress nicely, unlike you who's even stingy with takeout." I didn't bother to react, only smiling coldly to myself. In a month, his father would marry Sarah, who was already pregnant with a boy. Ethan indeed had money, but with a stepmother in charge, I wondered if Liam would still happily call her mother in this life. It was summer vacation. Early the next morning, I took Hannah on a high-speed train back to my maternal hometown. From Tyke City, my mother's house was over 800 kilometers away, taking 5 hours by high-speed train, then another hour by bus. Last year, my father passed away in an accident, leaving my mother alone in the house. I held Hannah's hand, standing at the door, and knocked. A strange man's voice echoed from within. Hannah, not understanding, turned to look at me, full of questions. I gently patted her head to reassure her. The door quickly opened. The man standing inside was only wearing shorts, shirtless. Seeing the sight before me, I merely found it amusing, but outwardly I feigned suspicion. "Who are you?" He frowned, his voice sharp. "Who are you? What are you doing knocking on my door in the middle of the day?" I raised my hand and pointed at the house number by the door. "This is clearly my house." The man looked annoyed and waved his hand dismissively. Go, 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 your house. Go find it somewhere else." With that, he tried to close the door. I quickly stopped him. "I'm Grandpa John's daughter?" Before I could finish, the man's expression suddenly changed. Immediately, he slammed the door shut in my face. I knocked repeatedly. There was no sound from within. Having no other choice, I took out my phone and called my mother. The phone rang for a long time, but no one answered. I called again, but it had been turned off. Unable to delay any longer, I immediately called the police. The local police station was nearby. They arrived very quickly. "Are you the one who reported this?" "Yes, I suspect my house has been broken into. I couldn't reach my mother, and I was worried something bad had happened to her." Just as the police arrived, my mother's door opened. My mother stepped out and, without a word, slapped me hard across the face. The crisp sound echoed, stunning everyone around us. The police immediately pushed my mother away, sternly asking, "What are you doing?" My mother pointed a finger at my face and unleashed a torrent of abuse. "Ungrateful wretch, who told you to call the police?" I held my reddened, swollen face, tears welling up as I choked out, "Mom, you didn't open the door when I knocked and you didn't answer my calls. I was afraid something had happened to you." Amidst the crowd, someone spoke up. "Grandma May, you've gone too far. Your daughter traveled all this way to visit you, and you wouldn't even open the door." Another person chimed in. "Your husband hasn't even been gone for half a year, and you've already brought another man into his house. Do you have no shame? Poor Grandpa John. He worked his entire life to buy this house, only to die and let someone else enjoy it. If I were him, I'd come back as a ghost and drag someone down with me." I lowered my eyes, not saying a word. My father was a truck driver, on the road year-round, sometimes only coming home once a year. My mother couldn't bear the loneliness and secretly had an affair with another man. Less than half a year after Dad's death, she brought that man into the house Dad had worked his whole life to buy. In my past life, because I was married far away, I knew nothing. It wasn't until several years later, when that man swindled the house away and my mother was kicked out with nothing, that I learned the truth. But by then, it was too late. So in this life, before things could turn for the worse, I had come back. The police left, and I also led my daughter into the house. My mother sat on the sofa with a sullen face. That man, Kevin, sat beside her, consoling her while looking at me with disapproval. "Your mother gave birth to you and raised you, and this is how you treat her." I found it amusing and quietly retorted, "Who are you to lecture me, old man?" The man's face turned pale with anger, grinding his teeth. "You're truly ill-bred," I smirked, "and you're so well-bred, aren't you? Man over 40, not working, just clinging to an old woman all day long." I deliberately paused for a moment then, as if suddenly realizing, could it be that you're after my father's house? His face instantly stiffened. Hit where it hurt, he started stammering, What nonsense are you talking about? Your mother and I have true love." I turned to see Hannah covering her mouth, trying to stifle a laugh. She looked at the man very seriously and asked, "He says he loves Grandma." "But Grandma is already 60 years old. What do you love about her?" My mother didn't love me, but she still had some restraint because Hannah was only 8 years old, so she temporarily sent that man away. Before leaving, he even whined in front of my mother, "If you're not here, how can I sleep?" My entire body broke out in goosebumps. I almost vomited on the spot. Damn it, for a house, this man would say anything. After he left, the house fell into a thick silence. My mother didn't bother to acknowledge me. She turned and walked into her bedroom. I didn't care either. I put down my luggage and took Hannah out to buy food. After buying groceries, I went into the kitchen to cook. All three of us sat down at the dining table. My mother was the one to break the silence, her tone not at all pleasant. "Now that you've eaten, you two can leave." I replied nonchalantly, "I'm not going anywhere for now." My mother's eyes widened and she raised her voice. "You're not going, what do you mean?" I looked up at her, my voice still calm. I've divorced Ethan. With just that one sentence, my mother immediately shot up. You divorced Ethan? Such a big matter, why didn't you discuss it with me first? He opened a company, bought a villa, he's getting more and more successful, and you divorced him, Willow? Are you out of your mind? I burst out laughing, my eyes full of sarcasm. Discuss it with you. When you brought that strange man to live in the house Dad worked so hard to buy, did you ask for my opinion? No matter how impatient you were, you should have respected Dad's passing. It hasn't even been half a year. Would it have killed you to wait a little longer? I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the bitterness in my heart. Before he died, Dad wanted to leave Mom a retirement fund. He wouldn't even use painkillers. I thought of the image of my father on his sickbed, his body emaciated, in so much pain that even drinking water was difficult. Yet he still only worried about my mother. Even as he closed his eyes, his hand still clutched mine, whispering, "Your mother has never experienced hardship. I'm afraid she'll be heartbroken. Please visit her often." But my mother had no conscience. Less than half a month after Dad passed, she went on a trip with friends, claiming it was to clear her head. By the time she returned, she had another man by her side. In less than half a year, she even let him move in. Every brick, every penny in this house, Dad earned by sacrificing his life. He ultimately died from exhaustion, and now, another man has come to enjoy everything he left behind. Grief and indignation flooded my heart. Grief for Dad, who had loved and sacrificed for someone unworthy. Indignation at Mom's heartlessness. She had been protected by Dad her entire life, yet she could be so cruel. My mother ignored me for 3 straight days. She left early in the morning and came back late at night. I heard from the elderly neighbor, Mrs. Miller, that she was going to find that man. Mrs. Miller pulled me aside, her face full of disgust. That man, you can tell at a glance he's not decent. His face is cunning, he doesn't have a proper job, and he lives entirely off your mother. I asked, does he have his own house? Oh my goodness, he's dirt poor. He relies on your mother even for food and drink. Where would he get money to buy a house? Where does he live? Your mother rented an apartment for him right next to this complex, 2 rooms, 1 living room, $1 million a month. Your mother pays for all of it. Mrs. Miller held my hand, sighing deeply. Willow, your mother has no conscience. Your father treated her so well. He drove his truck day and night to earn money. Whenever he came home, he wouldn't even let your mother wash his socks. He prepared all her meals and drinks. Saying this, Mrs. Miller's eyes reddened. Your father didn't deserve this. I returned home, sat on the sofa, and looked around the house. Everywhere bore traces of that man. A fire of anger surged within me. I immediately went out and bought a few mini cameras, installing them in various corners of the house. The next day, I took Hannah back to Tyke City. Since marrying Ethan, I had never worked outside the home, taking care of both children by myself for 15 years as a full-time mother. During the divorce, Ethan left me this dilapidated house along with 200,000 yuan. In my past life, this 200,000 was gone in less than half a year because Liam caused trouble, breaking a classmate's arm. All the money had to be used for compensation, leaving me penniless. I was forced to sell dumplings on the street, struggling to make a living. But in this life, Liam had been handed over to his father. If he caused trouble, it no longer concerned me. So I started thinking about investing this money. I had no business acumen, so of course, I didn't dare to risk investing in trade. However, I knew that in 2 or 3 years, the western suburbs of Tyke City would be redeveloped. Currently, as it was a suburb, real estate prices were incredibly cheap. The next day, after dropping Hannah off at her summer enrichment class, I went to Nam Trang town in the suburbs. There were many houses for sale there at cheap prices. A large house, almost 200 square meters, was only 150,000 yuan. Without a moment's hesitation, I bought one. Arriving home, I looked at the house purchase agreement in my hand. Before I could even feel happy, my phone rang. It was Liam. I didn't want to answer, but a part of me couldn't help but pick up. Before I could speak, his annoyed voice came through the line. Mom, transfer me 500 yuan. What for? I asked. To treat my friends to a meal, he replied, his voice full of irritation. What nonsense are you talking about? Just transfer the money quickly. Don't let my friends make fun of me. He hung up immediately. Of course, I didn't transfer the money. Less than 5 minutes later, he called again. I hung up directly. He kept calling, so I decisively turned off my phone. I no longer wanted to carry the burden of his life. In the evening, I didn't cook at home but took Hannah out for barbecue. Tyke City is famous for its grilled dishes. In summer, the air always carried the scent of grilled lamb mixed with cumin powder. Hannah and I casually picked a small restaurant and sat down. Just as we settled in, I heard someone call my name. I looked up and saw Sarah sitting at the opposite table next to Ethan, with Liam opposite them, a cozy, intimate family of three. I coldly glanced over and then looked away, not wanting to pay attention to them. I didn't care about them, but they wouldn't leave me alone. Sarah placed a hand on her belly and gently complained. Willow, when you were pregnant with Liam, did you crave sour foods? Lately, I don't know why, but I've been craving sour things so much. Ethan buys me lemons every day, but it's still not enough. I looked at her, my eyes calm, and sincerely suggested, how about you drink some vinegar? Sarah's face stiffened. Ignoring her, I continued, besides, this isn't your first child, is it? I remember when you were pregnant with Sean, you craved spicy food. So it seems that theory about craving sour for a boy and spicy for a girl isn't so reliable after all, huh? Sarah, my former best friend. Years ago, when I left home to marry in Tyke City, I had no relatives there. She lived in the same apartment complex as me, lively and outgoing, and took the initiative to befriend me. I gradually came to consider her my best friend, but I never imagined that while I saw her as a friend, she would steal my husband. The double betrayal from my husband and best friend, plus my ungrateful, heartless son, whenever I thought back, my heart ached profoundly. But thankfully, now I no longer cared. Perhaps thinking I was bullying Sarah, even before Ethan could speak, Liam immediately stood up and quickly walked towards me. He supported his pregnant stepmother, frowning and looking at me with disdain. You knew I was having barbecue here, so you came to find me, didn't you? I froze. Before I could say anything, he continued, his voice rising. I know you want to see me, but I don't want to see you. You're being really annoying. Sarah smiled faintly, gently advising, Liam, don't be rude. After all, she is your biological mother. Liam clearly showed his disgust. I truly regret having a mother like this. He looked at me from head to toe, his eyes full of shame and revulsion. Look at the clothes you're wearing. They're no different from my school's janitor uniform. Last time my friends saw you and laughed at me behind my back. Sarah gently smiled. After all, your mother just wants to save money for you. She hopes you have a better life. Liam's expression immediately changed, his eyes becoming affectionate and intimate as he put his arm around Sarah. But today I asked her for 500 and she wouldn't even give it to me. Aunt Sarah is different. I asked her for 500 and she gave me 1,000. All my friends say Aunt Sarah isn't my real mother, but she's even better than my real mother. When I make money in the future, I'll definitely be filial to Aunt Sarah. Sarah flashed a smug, self-satisfied smile, looking at me as if to provoke me. I lowered my head, unable to utter a single word. The heartbreak choked me. Just then, Hannah stood up, blocking me, glaring at Sarah and Liam, her voice full of indignation. Both of you get out. My mother doesn't want to see you. The entire area was drawn to the situation, many people turning to watch. Ethan, who was usually very concerned with appearances, finally spoke. That's enough, hurry back and eat, I have something to do soon. As soon as she heard he had something to do, Sarah immediately returned to the table. Liam followed, but before he left, he didn't forget to point a finger at Hannah and me, and coldly told us to stay away from him. After eating barbecue, I took Hannah home. Right in front of our apartment complex, I happened to run into Chris. He was the same age as Liam, but unlike Liam's coarse build, Chris was fair-skinned and scholarly-looking. Seeing me, he stopped and politely greeted, Auntie Willow. I subtly nodded, noticing he was carrying a basket of fruit. I casually asked, helping your dad with work? Yes, new stock just arrived and Dad's too busy, so I came to lend a hand. Saying this, he put the basket down and started picking peaches into a plastic bag. After filling a large bag, he handed it to me. Auntie Willow, you and Hannah taste these. These peaches are really sweet. When they were little, Chris and Liam grew up together. Because Sarah couldn't cook, Chris often came to my house for meals, which made him very close to me. I quickly waved my hand, declining. Just then, a middle-aged man walked out of the store. It was Frank Chen, Chris's father, and also Sarah's ex-husband. Seeing me, his expression momentarily stiffened with awkwardness. In the past, when I found out Sarah was having an affair with Ethan, I had gone to Frank Chen and made a scene. Since then, he had always avoided me. But thinking about it again, he was also a victim. All the fault lay with Sarah. What did it have to do with him? With that thought, I took the initiative to greet him, Mr. Chen. He glanced at me, said nothing, and turned straight back into the store. Dad's a bit stiff, huh? Chris watched his father's retreating back, then smiled sheepishly and explained, Dad just came back from getting new stock and got a bit sunstroke. Auntie, please don't mind him. As he spoke, he tucked the bag of peaches into my hand. I couldn't refuse, so I took them and as a courtesy asked, "Have you two had dinner yet?" Chris smiled, a little shy. "Not yet. I have some common pork dumplings at home. Would you like me to get some for you and your father to eat?" Chris didn't hesitate, nodding immediately. "Yes, please, Auntie Willow." So, after I finished cooking the dumplings, I had Hannah take them to the Chen family for Chris and his father. Alone in the living room, I pondered my future path. How could I find a job? I only had a high school diploma. In an era flooded with university graduates, finding a decent job was impossible. The only jobs I could do were waitressing or supermarket sales clerk. But these jobs paid so little, it was even less than selling street food. In my past life, I had struggled selling street food for many years to raise Liam from high school to university, then forced him to continue to graduate school, postdoctoral studies, and eventually get his PhD. Over that entire journey, I had spent hundreds of thousands of yuan, all of it earned from selling street food. It was a seemingly small job, but it was lucrative. So, in this life, I still wanted to sell street food. No sooner said than done. The next day I rented a stall on the food street and began my familiar work. Hannah finished her summer enrichment class in the morning and then came to help me in the afternoon. Mother and daughter were busy, and our daily income steadily increased, filling me with growing confidence. Near the end of the summer vacation, I took Hannah on a trip back to my maternal hometown. Before leaving, I had made a spare key to the house myself. Upon arriving at the door, I unlocked it and stepped inside, only to find the house incredibly lively, right at lunchtime. That man, Kevin, and a strange woman, Tina, were busy in the kitchen, while my mother sat on the sofa with two children, watching TV. The moment I entered, the smile on her face vanished and her expression turned ugly. "What are you doing back here?" I didn't answer, only looked at the two people in the kitchen, subtly curling my lips into a cold smile. This young couple is so affectionate, aren't they? Both in the kitchen, serving this old woman. "What nonsense are you talking about?" My mother was so angry she almost jumped up, yelling, "Tina is Kevin's cousin, here for a holiday visit." I didn't argue with her. My expression grew colder. Kevin and the girl named Tina walked out of the kitchen. Before I could speak, Kevin angrily challenged, "This isn't a place you can just come and go as you please. You barged in without even greeting anyone. Didn't your father teach you manners when he was dying?" My head buzzed. I immediately lunged forward and delivered a resounding slap straight to his face. Everyone was stunned. I coldly said, "Where did this stray dog come from, barking wildly in my house? What happens to my father is none of a piece of trash like you's business." Slapped by me, Kevin immediately flew into a rage. He lunged forward, grabbed my hair, and raised his hand to strike. Hannah, seeing this, ran to help me but was kicked away. And my own mother? She just sat there on the sofa, coldly watching her lover lay hands on her daughter, not moving an inch. In that moment, I felt completely numb, utterly disappointed. Just then, an angry shout rang out, "Let's see who dares to touch her." Before Kevin could even let go of my hair, he was held tightly by a tall young man. I looked up towards the door. A middle-aged man stood there. Tears involuntarily streamed down my face. That was my cousin, Uncle George. In this world, besides my father, he was the only one who truly loved me. The one holding Kevin tightly was Leo, my cousin's son. He had just been discharged from the military, tall and muscular. With just one hand, he pinned Kevin to the ground, rendering him unable to move. At this moment, my mother, who had been indifferent until now, finally reacted. She frantically rushed over, hitting and kicking Leo, yelling, "You brat, let him go now. If you dare touch him even a little, I'll call the police and have you arrested." My cousin Uncle George stepped forward, grabbed my mother, and forcefully pushed her onto the sofa. The moment she fell, my mother started cursing, "George, you bastard. I'm your aunt. How dare you lay hands on me?" My cousin's face turned dark with anger, veins bulging. "My uncle hasn't even been gone for half a year, and you've already brought a strange man into the house and conspired with him to bully Willow. If I were my uncle, even if I turned into a ghost, I wouldn't spare either of you." Hearing my father mentioned, my mother, who had been aggressive, suddenly froze. Her arrogant demeanor immediately deflated. This was because my mother was very superstitious. Every 1st and 15th of the lunar month, she would burn incense and pray. "And if you have guilt in your heart, you'll surely fear ghosts and spirits." My cousin had driven Kevin and his group out of the house. In the living room, my mother sat on the sofa. My cousin sat beside me. I asked my nephew Leo to take Hannah out to eat something. After the two children left, I looked at my mother and calmly said, "That girl, Tina, isn't Kevin's cousin. They are husband and wife, and those 2 children are their biological kids. My mother immediately retorted, impossible. Kevin has never been married? Then she added, he even showed me his household registration. My mother was stubborn. Once she believed something, even 10 cows couldn't pull her away from it. I didn't bother to argue anymore. Instead, I took out my phone and opened the videos I had recorded over the past month. There were too many. I selected one and showed it to my mother. In the video, the scene was my living room. My mother wasn't home, while Kevin and his cousin, Tina, were entangled on the sofa, panting, making such loud noises that anyone watching would blush. Afterward, Tina snuggled into Kevin's arms, her voice full of resentment. When will you get this house? I'm so tired of living away from you. Kevin patted her, his tone patient. What's the rush? It's only been half a year. If I demand the house too quickly, that old woman will definitely get suspicious. Tina frowned, her voice filled with disgust. But every time I think about you touching that old hag, I want to vomit. Kevin's face also showed revulsion. She truly smells like an old woman, both stale and fishy. Every time I touch her, I want to die from nausea. Yet she thinks she's still young, even comparing herself to women in their 20s. My mother trembled and threw the phone down, her face turning from pale to green, shaking with rage. She glared at me, her eyes like she wanted to devour me alive. This must be your doing? I had nothing more to say. Last time, before I left, I secretly installed cameras in the house specifically to find evidence that those 2 were after this house. Now, with undeniable proof right in front of her, how could she still deny it? My mother remained stubborn. Videos can be faked. Do you think I'm stupid? This time, not only I, but my cousin was also speechless. My cousin spoke up. Auntie, you said those 2 children aren't Kevin's? My mother nodded. They're Tina's children. I met her husband once. The 2 kids look just like him. My cousin had an idea. Mom, do you know about DNA testing? Just pluck a few strands of hair from the 2 children and a few from Kevin, then take Auntie to get a paternity test. The results will be clear then. My mother acted very quickly. In just one day, she obtained hair samples and went with my cousin to the DNA testing center. When she returned, her face was ashen, and she looked as if she had aged 10 years. She went into her bedroom and didn't come out again until noon the next day. Then she quietly emerged, holding her ID card and the property deed. She looked at me, her eyes cold, her voice devoid of emotion. This house was earned by your father's hard work. I never contributed a single penny. Now that your father is gone, this house should rightfully belong to you. I didn't say anything, only quietly accepted the documents from her hand. Then I immediately went to the land management office. When I returned, the house was officially in my name. I booked a bus ticket back to Tyke City for the afternoon, not wanting to stay another day. The wounds my mother had inflicted on me couldn't be healed overnight. But ultimately, I still couldn't leave immediately because Kevin came back to cause trouble. He brought a group of people to smash down my door. In the past few days, she had lost all face and her hatred for Kevin was bone deep. Now, seeing him dare to come and stir up trouble at her house, she immediately went berserk, swinging the knife at him. In this world, the weak fear the strong fear the reckless, and the reckless fear those who don't care to live. My mother, at this moment, was completely desperate, ready to risk her life against Kevin. And Kevin, who had been so arrogant moments ago, now turned into a coward. Seeing my mother charge at him with a knife, he was so scared he turned and fled, and his troublemaking companions also scrambled to retreat. I stood by, watching my mother stand amidst the crowd, relentlessly cursing. Listening to the whispers and gossip of the neighbors around. How disgraceful. If it were me, I'd jump into the river and commit suicide. HMPH, jump in the river. I bet in a few days she'll bring another man home. No way, she's already 60. Oh, please, she was like this when she was young too. She never lived a decent day. The next day, before returning to Tyke City, I had a frank conversation with my mother. You can stay in this house, but you are not allowed to bring any more men here. The neighbors understand you, and I understand you even better. Ever since I was little, you've been involved with one man after another. I don't know how many green hats you put on my father's head. I resented your brazenness, but you are still my mother. I can't just kick you out of the house. My mother heard this, indifferently raised an eyebrow, and let out a cold snort. Who are you to forbid me? Anger flared within me. Grandma May, it's out of respect for you having given birth to me that I'm leaving you some dignity. Don't force me to kick you out of here. She glared at me. You wouldn't dare. Why wouldn't I dare? You only gave birth to me, but you didn't raise me. My eyes stung with tears. From birth until I was 7, I lived with my grandmother. When I came back to you, you never once took care of me, couldn't even cook a hot meal for me, let alone show me love. I took a deep breath and continued. I will never forget that year when I had a 40-degree fever, crying and begging my mother to take me to the hospital, but she turned her back and went off with another man, eating and having fun all night. The wounds of my childhood would never heal. Tears streamed down my face. I cried until my entire body trembled. After crying until my tears ran dry, I calmed down. Before leaving, I warned her one last time. If there's a next time, I will show no mercy. Back in Tyke City, Hannah started school, and I continued my street vending business, earning money. Life moved forward, full of hope. In a flash, winter arrived. Tyke City had a small snowfall, which made my dumpling business even more popular. The food street was right near the school. Every day after school, Hannah would come to help me. She was very well behaved and excelled in her studies, which reassured me greatly. After a while, Chris also arrived. This year, he had been accepted into First High, the best high school in Tyke City. Students from First High are almost guaranteed to get into top universities like 985 and 211. He put down his bag, intending to help me, but I pulled him to a small table nearby and cooked him a bowl of noodles. It's your birthday. Eat this bowl of longevity noodles. After you're done, go home and study. Chris looked at the noodles before him, his eyes red-rimmed, but he said nothing, only quietly picked up his chopsticks and ate. I sighed softly, reaching out to pat his head. I thought of what I had seen on social media today. A few days ago, Sarah had just given birth to a baby boy. Today, she held a grand celebration at a 5-star hotel in Tyke City. She doted on her newborn like a treasure, completely forgetting that today was also the 16th birthday of another son. Chris had only eaten a few bites of noodles when Liam appeared. He had been accepted into high school number 19, the worst high school in Tyke City. Since our encounter at the barbecue restaurant, this was the first time I had seen him. His hair was long and messy, and he was still with a group of rowdy friends. They noisily dragged themselves into the shop, yelling and calling out to each other, making the whole street chaotic. Liam swaggered up to me, pointed at his friends behind him, and ordered, "Count how many there are, bring out all the food, drinks, and beer." He turned to his friends, bragging, "Tonight's on me, order whatever you want." I didn't bother to react, continuing to busy myself cooking noodles for other customers. Seeing I didn't respond, Liam lost face. He reached out and forcefully shoved me. "Are you deaf? I'm talking to you." When he shoved me, I was carrying a hot bowl of wontons to a customer, the broth freshly scooped from the bubbling pot. It was knocked flying, scalding the back of my hand. The pain made my face turn pale. Hannah rushed over in a panic, crying and screaming, "Brother, you can't bully Mom." Chris also immediately stepped forward. He quickly took the bowl of wontons from my hand, set it aside, then pulled me to the faucet and ran cold water over the burn. The cold water eased the pain in my hand, but nothing could soothe the ache in my heart. I looked at Liam, remembering how I had pampered him for the past 15 years. How much love, how many expectations, only to be met with disappointment and hurt, time and time again. At this moment, my heart was numb. My eyes bloodshot, my voice terrifyingly cold, I ordered, "Take your friends and get out of here right now." But Liam refused to leave and continued to act recklessly. Pointed his finger directly at my face, his voice mocking. "Who the hell are you? My friends and I are eating here out of respect for you. Don't be so ungrateful." Before his words even finished, a figure suddenly lunged forward. With a bop, a gasp echoed through the crowd as Chris delivered a direct punch to Liam's face. But Liam wasn't one to be easily bullied, and the two immediately lunged at each other, fighting. I didn't have time to think, rushing along with customers to break them apart. Just as I pulled Liam away, he unexpectedly swung his fist, hitting me squarely in the face. I felt dizzy, the world spinning. A hot stream flowed from my nose. Blood gushed out, quickly staining my entire face red. Hannah screamed, tears streaming down her face, hugging me tightly. "Mommy, Mommy, don't die." The surroundings were chaotic. Someone yelled, "Call the police, quickly, report it. Someone's been beaten to death." Amidst the noisy chaos, my vision blurred, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was at home. Hannah was sitting by the bed, her eyes red-rimmed and full of worry. Beside her were Chris and his father, Frank Chen. Seeing me open my eyes, all three of them breathed a sigh of relief. Frank Chen spoke first. "The doctor said you were overly agitated and had a severe nosebleed, but there's nothing serious." I nodded, quietly expressing my thanks. Chris gritted his teeth. "Liam ran away, and the police haven't caught him yet." Before I could say anything, Hannah burst into tears, choking out, He's a bad person. He's no longer my brother. From then on, I never saw Liam again. The next time I heard about him was through others. Liam had beaten a classmate to death. The victim's family refused to let it go, demanding either a life for a life or 2 million yuan in compensation. 2 million yuan wasn't a huge sum for Ethan. After all, he was currently living in a villa worth over 2 million yuan. But Sarah made a huge fuss, refusing to pay, and Ethan just put on a show for a bit before abandoning the whole matter. When I heard this news, I was utterly shocked. In my past life, Liam only broke a classmate's arm, and that one arm cost me all 200,000 yuan I had saved. But in this life, he killed someone, paying the price of a life for a life. His father wouldn't take care of him, and of course, I had no ability to either. A few days later, the detention center called, saying Liam wanted to see me. I flatly refused. I'm not available. From the moment I was reborn, his life had no longer concerned me. The mother-son bond between us had been completely severed on the day I jumped from the hotel rooftop in my past life. Under my protection, Hannah grew up healthy and strong. From elementary to middle to high school, her academic performance was consistently excellent. This year, she was accepted into Peking University with an extremely high score. Looking at the young woman standing before me, her fair skin, tall figure, beautiful face, and eyes full of confidence, there was no trace of the shy, frail girl from my past life. I was overwhelmingly proud and joyful. This summer, Chris also returned from Beijing. 6 years ago, he had been admitted to Peking University, and now he had completed his PhD. The university kept him on as a lecturer with a brilliant future ahead. I prepared a grand meal and invited Frank Chen and his son. Over the years, Frank Chen had also earned a considerable amount of money. While his fruit store was thriving, he had opened 3 more branches, and his business was flourishing. Currently, almost the entire fruit market in Taik City was in his hands. I also had good news of my own. My garden house that I bought in the suburbs years ago was redeveloped, and I received almost 3 million yuan in compensation. I used half that money to buy a spacious apartment with a garden. Knowing this, Chris also told his father to buy an apartment right next to mine, separated only by a wall. Taking the opportunity of everyone gathered, I brought out wine and proposed a toast. Suddenly, Chris stood up. He held Hannah's hand, looking at me nervously. Auntie Willow, Hannah and I. He gathered all his courage, looked directly at me, and said clearly, I like Hannah. Hannah blushed bright red but still looked at me steadfastly, softly saying, Mom, I like Chris too. I subtly raised an eyebrow, looking at Chris, and teased, No wonder you kept insisting your father buy a house next to mine. So you had this planned all along, did you? Chris quickly clarified, speaking earnestly, Auntie Willow, you're wronging me. The idea of buying a house was Dad's suggestion first. He wanted to be closer to you. This time, it was my turn to blush. For several years now, Frank Chen had always found excuses to be by my side, caring for me in every little detail. I'm not made of wood. How could I not notice his intentions? Just like that, Frank Chen and I were together for half a year before we registered our marriage. On the day we received our marriage certificate, an uninvited guest arrived at my house, Sarah, whom I hadn't seen in years. When I saw her, I almost didn't recognize her. I remembered the last time I saw Sarah was 6 years ago, on the evening Chris got into Peking University. That day, she wore a striking red dress and stepped out of a luxurious Porsche, looking incredibly glamorous. She held a little boy's hand, her face still aloof and distant. Standing before Chris, she gave a faint smile. Well, you did manage to get into Peking University, so your future probably won't be too bad. She handed Chris a red envelope. Here's 1,000 yuan. Buy some nice clothes to wear when you study in Beijing. Don't let yourself look too poor. Chris didn't take it. His voice was calm, without a ripple of emotion. Nothing about me concerns you, whether good or bad. I don't need you to worry. Take care of yourself. Saying this, he turned and walked back into the store to continue helping his father arrange goods. Sarah angrily threw the envelope to the ground, pulled the child back to the car, and the blue Porsche roared and sped away. At that moment, Chris stood motionless by the shelf for a long time, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, but he didn't let a single one fall. That was my last memory of Sarah, a wealthy, arrogant, yet callous and heartless woman. But now, looking at her sitting on the sofa with a haggard expression, her makeup unable to hide her age and weariness, I frowned slightly. It seemed she had something to say but hesitated to voice it. Frank Chen spoke first, his voice cold. What are you doing here? Sarah looked at him, her lips trembling slightly. Frank Chen lost his patience, his voice full of disgust. If you have something to say it quickly. I don't have time to chat with you. Sarah awkwardly glanced at me, then said, I have something private to discuss with you. Could you step outside first? I raised an eyebrow and calmly sat down on the sofa, casually tossing the newly received marriage certificate onto the table in front of her. No way, Sarah. I just got married, and you're already rushing to snatch my husband? Wasn't one Ethan enough for you? She stared in shock at the marriage certificate in my hand. Immediately afterward, her face twisted as if Frank Chen and I had betrayed her. She trembled, pointing at us, her voice full of rage. You too dare. Her eyes glared at me as if she wanted to devour me alive. Willow, you're a despicable wretch. I didn't waste another word. I raised my hand and slapped her hard across the face. Sarah went wild, lunging at me, but Frank Chen was quicker. He immediately grabbed her, forcefully pushed her out the door, and exclaimed, Get out. My house doesn't welcome you. Sarah couldn't believe it, tears welling up in her eyes. Frank, I can't believe it. You once loved me so much. I know deep down you've always waited for me to come back. But her only answer was the cruel slam of the door. Later, we learned that Ethan had found a new lover, and Sarah was kicked out of his house, even more cruelly than he had treated me before. She wasn't given a single penny. The second day after Frank Chen and I received our marriage certificate, I took him to my maternal hometown. But we didn't go to the house. Instead, we went straight to a nursing home. 3 years ago, my mother was swindled out of all her savings by an old man. I was completely disillusioned with her, so I put her in a nursing home. There, surrounded by other elderly women, she no longer had the inclination to seek out men. Every day, she was busy playing cards, singing, dancing, and learning to draw. Her life seemed comfortable and leisurely. We arrived right at lunchtime. I paid for the kitchen to make a few extra delicious dishes, and the three of us ate together in my mother's room. No one said much. After the simple meal, as we were preparing to leave, my mother unexpectedly called me back. She stood at the door of her room, and for the first time there was a hint of longing in her eyes. She asked me, When will you visit me again, my child? I didn't answer, but an image suddenly flashed in my mind. That year, my mother was getting ready to go out, and I stood hesitantly at the door, asking her, Mommy, when will you be back? Can you come back a little early? I'm scared. I didn't answer her, but from then on, I changed from visiting once every 6 months to once a month, and then later every few days. Each time, Frank Chen came with me. My mother and I still didn't talk much, but every time I visited, she was very happy. She would give me hand-embroidered bags or secretly tuck candies and snacks she had saved for a long time, too reluctant to eat herself, into my pocket. 3 years later, Hannah graduated from university. Chris was eager to marry her. They registered their marriage first, and I personally took charge of planning the wedding. I chose the best 5-star hotel in Tyke City and hired a top wedding planning company. The wedding was enveloped in a magnificent and magical atmosphere. Sitting beside Frank Chen, I watched the 2 young people before me, bowing in deference, my heart filled with emotion, tears welling in my eyes. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from below. I looked up and saw Sarah, who had appeared from nowhere. She tightly gripped Chris's arm, her gaunt face flushed, her eyes wild. Chris, my good son, I am your real mother. That despicable woman, Willow, is not worthy of being your mother. Chris coldly shoved her away. Then he called security to drag Sarah out. Watching her being dragged away by security like a ragged doll, I suddenly remembered my past life, in this very hotel, in this very spot. But my position and hers were completely reversed. Back then, I stood below the stage, while Sarah sat high above. Liam led his bride and bowed to her. At that moment, Sarah's eyes looked at me with smug satisfaction. She subtly curled her lips and whispered, Willow, your husband is mine. Your son only acknowledges me as his mother. You have nothing left. If I were you, I would have died long ago. I truly did die, just as she wished. But I was reborn, and in this life, it was her turn to lose everything.